Hi everybody, this is Paranormal Sarah, and you are tuning in live for my first rendition of what I'm going to call the archives. And this is simply because every week on Scary Sundays on liveparanormal.com, we will do a Ustream that reaches like 30,000 people. And typically on the Ustream, you can archive what it is you're doing. And then on Live Paranormal, you can chat and interact, and we have live debates, questions, and guests online, so you can get face-to-face, word-to-word, mouth-to-mouth, the whole 9 yards with your favorite paranormal people. I'm doing short 15-minute segments of some of my favorite and top Ustream Scary Sundays and live paranormal episodes so that people can watch and in 15 minutes or less get a gist of what it is we do on Scary Sundays, and then maybe decide if you want to come every Sunday and join us at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. So tonight, as you saw with the images and with the kind of pictures in the beginning, is that we are going to be covering spontaneous human combustion. And the reason this is my first archived show is because it was one of my all-time favorite streams. Some of the interaction, questions, and the amount of which I learned, and I think the people who tuned in learned, was pretty amazing. So, first question was, spontaneous human combustion, how in the heck does this pertain to the paranormal? And the fact of the matter is, anything that's not normal is considered paranormal. And spontaneous human combustion is something that's on most horror, sci-fi people's minds. They've heard of the term, they have a general idea of what it is, or they've seen Firestarter, they think of Drew Barrymore, but they don't really know what's happening or why it's happening. And for me, as a parapsychology researcher, it's interesting because it could be powers of the mind, it could be powers of the environment, it could be manipulation, but the fact of the matter is it's measurable, it does happen, and it's something that can be openly talked about, and it doesn't have kind of a weird religious taboo on it, at least not for the majority. So I really like this topic, and I thought it was really interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my outline, which everyone is more than welcome to always email me at paranormalsarah@gmail.com and get a copy. I'll insert my citations, a little bit about what I found, and there'll always be all the extra, percentages and people and authors and everything like that. So feel free. But in the meantime, so the very first part of what we do with the term spontaneous human combustion is simply define it. What does it mean to you, or what do you think that it is? By definition, it is a name used to describe alleged cases of the burning of a living human body without an apparent external source of ignition. So without anything that the firefighters or the family members can find near the body, it doesn't seem like there's a source of ignition. The combustion may result in a simple burn or blister, which I don't think most people would realize is actually considered spontaneous human combustion. But you can get a smoking of the skin and of the body. You can get a complete incarceration of the body. Incineration, sorry, we're not going to jail. Incineration of the body, which I think is probably the most recognized as SHC, spontaneous human combustion. What is most unique for me, and why I like this topic, is that the body has suffered severe burning from the inside out. Normally the limbs are left undamaged. Picture? As you can see in the picture, the body is there, the legs, the arms, but where the torso is there's just this hole, there's this nothingness where it's burned from the inside out. And that's normally pretty common for spontaneous human combustion cases. The contrast of the burnt and untouched flesh is one of the most unique characteristics, is that somebody, and usually there are newspapers nearby, or it's happened on a couch, or there's plastic furniture nearby. Nothing shows any signs of smoke damage or fire damage or heat damage, which we will get to later on why we think that this is happening. So what are some of the causes of SHC? Well, some people think it's one of three things. One, that it's something paranormal, that we don't know the explanation at this point, but it could be aliens, it could be superstitions, it could be witchcraft, it could be telekinesis, it could be pyrokinesis, which, did you know, is not really a term used scientifically, but created by Stephen King for his book. So thank you, Stephen King. But it could be something paranormal. The second cause could be your natural environment. Some people believe it could be your blood alcohol levels igniting. gases in the air, which, by the way, your levels of alcohol to a point where it would ignite is kind of implausible. The ethanol burns only at a concentration of about 20 to 25%, whereas a fatally toxic level, I think, is about 1 to 4. So that's kind of unlikely, but it could be a natural environment cause, so paranormal, natural environment cause, or one of the three, which is a natural cause, something that maybe the victim dropped a cigarette, or a fire somewhere in the apartment, or the person caught fire while cooking, or static electricity, something like that. So let's kind of talk about some of the theories that you hear with SHC, because this is where I learned quite a bit, and I actually learned another phenomenon you see really frequently in the paranormal field smears over into this category. So the first one that you have is the matrix theory, at least that's what I call it, and it's that each human body does contain a certain amount of electrical impulse, and that this electrical field and that the human body contains flammable gases, mainly methane in your intestines, as we all know. But an electrical discharge could ignite these gases, and boom, the person blows up. Or burns up, rather. But the critics for this says that in most cases the SHC, the organs are untouched, or the upper part is typically what's charred, while the legs, feet, and lower part of the body are completely intact. So it's kind of unlikely that, and some of the other critics talking about the biological functions of the body, which sadly we don't have time to get into. But second theory, psychosomatic, or the Hamer theory. Emotionally distressed people can trigger off a chain reaction by reigniting the nitrogen within their body and setting off this chain mitochondrial explosion. Though, again, this is the illusion that nitrogen exists in a gas form in your blood, which it normally does not. So, again, the third theory, high energy particle theory. And this is probably one of the most popular. It states that high energy particles, or gamma rays, coupled with susceptibilities in your potential victim, such as increased alcohol in the blood, could trigger an initial reaction, and that the process may use no external oxygen to spread throughout the body, since it may not be an oxidation-reduction reaction. And there are some criticisms for that as well. The fourth theory of spontaneous human combustion is static electricity, which is a suggested possibility is that both the clothing and the person are caused to burn up by a discharge of static electricity, like running across the shag carpet in your jumpy jams and shocking somebody you know. That this person could be walking across the carpet, build up a sufficient charge and the voltage to create a spark. However, it's really unlikely that this could start a clothing fire, just because the voltage can be high, several thousand volts. Stored energy is very low, typically less than a joule. So Larry Arnold has suggested that the phenomenon is the work of a new subatomic particle called a pyroton. However, if you look up Larry Arnold, he's not technically a scientist in any way, but there's no evidence also proving the existence of this particle. So again, a little criticism there for you. Though I think static electricity is probably a first initial cause that pops into your head. Now, the latter theory, the last one that we're going to mention, which is the one that's smeared into the paranormal, is of ball lighting. Do you know what ball lighting is? Well, here's a picture. Ball lighting is an Sorry. This is how you know it's live, people. Ball lighting is an atmospheric electrical phenomenon, the existence of which is kind of disputed. The term refers to reports of luminous, usually spherical objects, which are vary from the size of a pea to even meters in diameter. It is usually associated with a thunderstorm, and does last considerably longer than the split-second flash of lightning, so it is something you do see a little bit longer than the flashes of what happens in a thunderstorm. But the early reports say that the ball eventually explodes, sometimes with a fatal consequence, leaving behind the odor of sulfur, and that it's almost like a big thunderclap that you hear. But these balls of light have been documented all throughout history, and many people today do see them and give eyewitness accounts of having ball lighting. They typically think it's a spirit or orb or something like that. But again, it's just an atmospherical electrical phenomenon. So if you don't know more about that, look it up. It's something to definitely check into. Now, there are tons of documented cases of spontaneous human combustion throughout history, though quite not as many as you would like. 200 cited, give or take, over a 300-year period, and that's kind of a worldwide estimate. Most are having a lack of thorough investigation just because people don't typically know what to do in that situation. The combustion may result in it could result from a form of anything, and a lot of times the investigation, because it kind of smears into that supernatural type thing, people kind of leave it undone, and sometimes people are too embarrassed to even call the authorities or associate it with spontaneous human combustion. But there are many throughout history. Some even claim that the Bible is the first documented case. However, science really doesn't consider the Bible a viable source. The first known account of spontaneous human combustion came from the Danish anatomist Thomas Berthelin in 1663, and he described how a woman in Paris went up in ashes and smoke right before his eyes. And it actually led to a series of documents that led to a published collection of spontaneous human combustion cases, and it's called De Incredulus Corpus Humani Spontaneus. So it's still in its Latin form, but you can find the book today. I read some of the excerpts from it. It's okay. The cases are interesting. However, a little bit more current to our time is on May 18th, 1957. Anna Martin, 68, of West Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, was found incarcerated, leaving only her shoes and a portion of her torso, which sadly the picture has crept out into the media, which you'll see here. Look away if you're faint of heart. But that actually is Anna Martin, and the medical examiner on the case said that he estimated the temperatures must have reached 1,700 to 2,000 degrees, yet her newspapers that were just 2 feet away were found completely intact and not touched at all, which is probably one of the most interesting things about spontaneous human combustion is that really, whenever your body is cremated, crematories normally have a process where they do burn the body first at high degrees, and then they grind the rest of the remains and bones to a more thin powder, and then they actually burn it a second time to get it to that smooth, ashy consistency that you see frequently in Hollywood, or if you've seen someone of your own family be cremated. But it is a process. However, in the SHC cases, the ashes of the people really are that way, and there aren't any remains of bones or anything, yet their floorboards aren't burned through and their house isn't burned up. So, something kind of interesting there to consider. Now again, there's documents on December 5th, 1966 of an Irvin Bentley in Clattersport, Pennsylvania, and one of the most famous cases in St. Petersburg, Florida, of Mary Hardy Reeser, a 67-year-old widow, sitting in her easy chair. The next morning, the next-door neighbor tried the doorknob and found it hot to the touch. However, everything around Mrs. Reeser was not burned. So, again, just a fun fact for you as we kind of end up here. I'm going to conclude with the fun fact that pyrokinesis was coined by Stephen King to describe the character Charlie McGee in Firestarter. And then also Charles Dickens, a very popular person we all know in literature, used spontaneous human combustion to kill off some of his characters. Actually, a lot of authors did back in the day because they really believed it was due to excessive drinking, which obviously is a sin, and thus she would go up in flames. But ultimately, as of March 2005, and actually as of present day, which is 2010, no one has offered scientific proof of a theory explaining spontaneous human combustion completely. The Wick theory is the most popular, which, since this is a short webisode, I can't give you all the details and answers. If you want to go find out for yourself what the Wick theory is, I'll give you a picture. Though some of the recreations of this experiment didn't really turn out like some of the SHC cases have throughout history. So, what about the images of a burned body with no feet or hands left touched by fire? The answers to those questions might have something to do with temperature gradients, something that you need to learn more about if you don't know already. But I hope that by watching this episode of Spontaneous Human Combustion in short, which is 60 minutes of material compressed into 15, that you did learn something, and that you will use this as an opportunity to motivate yourself and join us every Sunday at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time on liveparanormal.com for Scary Sundays with Paranormal Sarah.